Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm just going to talk about Ringo lifting one's spirits, or lifting my spirits anyway, whenever I feel in need of a bit of an uplift or cheering up for whatever reason. I tend to reach for Ringo more than the other three. I don't know why. A couple of reasons maybe. Maybe John and George's music is sometimes a little too serious, and I don't know, Ringo's music is not everyone's cup of tea, but in my opinion it's thoroughly unpretentious, particularly his best work, and it's just good old Ringo, just achieving far more than we had reason to expect him to. He's just a drummer after all, but he started writing songs towards the end of the Beatles' career, and then he carved out quite a niche for himself in the first half of the 70s as a solo career musically, and as an actor in films like Magic Christian in '69 and That'll Be the Day in '73. So, I mean, I think I've done a top 10 uplifting Ringo songs. Happy-go-lucky, there's another phrase of it associated with Ringo, and some of his lyrics are, you know, I've got, I'll read out a couple when I come to it, but, you know, back up against the wall, I'm going to pull through kind of thing, determined. First couple of albums he did were cover albums, so Sentimental Journey is a cover album, but there's a couple of tracks I've chosen here, or maybe just one for the top 10, Bye Bye Blackbird. I think it's a superb version. Paul did a version of this which is tortuously slow and not very uplifting, but this one is very cheerful, brings out the melody more, I think. And the other track was a very near miss for my top 10, was Let the Rest of the World Go By, the ballad at the end of the album, which is one of the few cases I think that where Ringo's singing harmony with himself vocally, so it's interesting for that reason alone. So Bye Bye Blackbird, arranged by Maurice Gibb. It's my choice from this album. Bo Coops of Blues, a very strong, I was listening to this album in the car on the way to work this morning. It's just a very strong album. I mean, the title suggests that it's grim and full of bad news, and it is, lyrically. A lot of the songs are sad or about lost love or soldiers not coming home from war and stuff like that. But in a strange way, it's uplifting because the musicianship, the Nashville musicianship, is just second to none. And I think Bob Woofenden is one of the only Beatles book authors I've seen who've gone on record as saying this is one of the best Beatles solo albums. I think it is. I really do think it's up there, even though it's a cover version album. And from this album I've chosen Loser's Lounge as my uplifting track for the top 10. I could have chosen $15 Draw or a couple of the ballads, but I chose that one. And then we have the Ringo album, '73. Well, more or less the whole album is uplifting. But I sent the song Step Lightly to a good friend of mine who was in need of a bit of cheering up, and it did the trick temporarily. It's a great song, and again about, you know, let's forget the past. You're moving too fast, let's forget the past. Very uplifting, good tap dancing from Ringo in the instrumental break. And I think Carr and Tyler said this could have fitted snugly on the White Album, this track, Step Lightly, and I think that's right. I've also chosen the Randy Newman track, Have You Seen My Baby? It's track 2, side 2. Very sad lyric about his girlfriend going off with the milkman and various other people, but very chirpy tune. I actually need to check out Randy Newman's original, I'm not sure if I've heard it. But great piano solo in the middle from James Booker, and then we've got a brilliant guitar from Mark Bolan, just providing the cream on top of the song. It was already a pretty brilliant song. So that, and then I've chosen You and Me Babe at the end of the album just because it's heartwarming to have Ringo sing that beautiful lyric written by George Harrison and Mal Evans. I just love the line, though I may not be in your town, you know that I can still be found right here on this record, spinning round with the sounds. I just think, and then the little speech he gives at the end where he thanks all the three Beatles and Klaus Voormann and Jim Keltner, Nicky Hopkins, just very heartwarming. And this whole record, I could have chosen I'm the Greatest, could have chosen any number of tracks from that album. And from this album I've chosen All By Myself, which kicks off side 2. I played it in the car on the way back from work. I played it 4 times consecutively, I think. It's just brilliant. And I work out my problems starting all over again. I've just started smiling, finding myself some new friends. And then Richard Perry's hilarious bass, but don't you know I'm tired? Brilliant. And he's used that bass vocal on a Nielsen album or 2 to great effect. I love it. And what's interesting about this Greek Goodnight Vienna is it's on the Apple label, which I personally found very rare. Apparently a couple of other people have seen it out there, so it didn't come as a surprise when I posted it on some Apple Records forum teeing it up as a big find. Apparently it's not that rare, but to me it is. It's always been on the Milky Way label, the copies I've seen. And then, so All By Myself, brilliant track, and about surviving on your own and getting over a broken relationship or whatever it is you're going through. Then A Dose of Rock and Roll, I've chosen the opening track from here because even the lyrics, if your mama don't feel good, your mum, what is it? If your mama don't feel good or your daddy don't feel so good, take a dose of rock and roll and wash it down with cool, clear soul. It's written by Carl Grossman, yeah, and it was a minor hit. But I just find the whole song uplifting. I know it's a bit disco-y, not everyone likes it, but I think this whole album is underrated, and that's a really uplifting song. I didn't choose anything from this album, but it's had its moments. I could have maybe chosen Simple Love Song, the closer, which is probably the most uplifting track on here. And then from Bad Boy, I've chosen Who Needs a Heart, the opening track, written by Ringo and Vinnie Poncia. And then Lipstick Traces on the Cigarette, the cover version. Both of those, I think, are underrated songs in the Ringo catalogue. In fact, this album is vastly underrated. I've reviewed all of these albums separately on my channel if you want to check them out. And bringing up the rest of the last of the top 10, I've chosen a track from here, Sure to Fall, In Love With You, the Carl Perkins cover, where it's really heartwarming to have Paul McCartney on bass, playing along with Ringo. They hadn't played together for 5 years by the time this album came out, Rotogrovo being the last occasion. So it's good to see Ringo back playing with Paul, playing with George for the first time since the Ringo album, actually, on one of his albums anyway. And he would have had John, as we know, on this album, but it wasn't to be because John passed away before this album was recorded, or for most of it. It was in the process of being recorded when John died. So Sure to Fall brings up my top 10. So yeah, whenever I get a bit down, I reach for Ringo, and invariably he does the trick and puts a smile back on my face. So thank you for that. So Ringo Starr. See you next time.